Hello everyone, today I want to discuss the Ministry of Foreign Affairs' strong statement to Japan. If Japan's seafood is imported, will anyone buy it? Also, as the saying goes, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Shinjirō Koizumi has betrayed Sanae Takaichi. In the future, having Sanae Takaichi step down would best resolve the Sino-Japanese conflict. As expected, regarding the suspension of Japanese seafood imports, Japan Broadcasting Corporation, or NHK, reported on November 19th that the Chinese government has officially notified the Japanese side that it will suspend the import of Japanese seafood. In its report, NHK stated that this may be one of the Chinese government's countermeasures against Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's previous remarks about a so-called Taiwan contingency. Japanese government officials said that China informed Japan of this decision on the same day, citing the need to address the wastewater from the Tokyo Electric Power Company's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant as the reason. The decision to monitor and assess was conveyed to Japan through official diplomatic channels on the morning of that day. In August 2023, after the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant began discharging treated nuclear wastewater into the sea, China issued an import ban on Japanese seafood. This June, China announced it would ease the ban and resume imports, except for seafood from Fukushima Prefecture and 9 other prefectures, including Gunma. Daimuken from Japan's Kurebayashi Fisheries revealed on November 19th that nearly 700 Japanese exporters had already applied to re-register for shipping goods to China, but at that time, only 3 had been approved. It was only at the beginning of this month that Japan just resumed exporting its first batch of products like scallops and sea cucumbers to China, but after that, there has been no further progress. At a regular Ministry of Foreign Affairs press conference, an NHK reporter asked if the spokesperson could give details and reasons for China's suspension of Japanese aquatic product imports after Japan's notification. Spokesperson Mao Ning said Japan previously promised to fulfill regulatory responsibilities for aquatic products exported to China and ensure their quality and safety. These are prerequisites for export to China. However, Japan has not provided the promised technical materials. Mao Ning then shifted the tone and further emphasized that recently, due to Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's erroneous remarks on major issues such as Taiwan, there has been strong indignation among the Chinese public. Under the current circumstances, even if Japanese aquatic products were exported to China, there would be no market for them. So, while the first part of the answer addressed technical reasons, the second part is a political statement. Even if Japanese aquatic products are exported to China, there will still be no market for them. This attitude is firm and resolute, essentially unafraid to address the issue, and is related to Sanae Takaichi's remarks. Sanae Takaichi has taken a radical and erroneous path regarding China, and there have also been changes within Japanese politics. On November 18th, at a press conference, Japan's Minister for COVID-19 Response, Shinjirō Koizumi, was asked about reconsidering the 3 non-nuclear principles. He responded that, as a government, they should continue to support the policy direction of the 3 non-nuclear principles, which means not possessing, not producing, and not introducing nuclear weapons. These are the 3 non-nuclear principles. This principle was proposed in 1967 by then Prime Minister Eisaku Sato during a speech in the Japanese Diet, and in 1971 it was passed at a plenary session of the House of Representatives, becoming the Japanese government's basic policy regarding nuclear weapons. Now, Shinjirō Koizumi is saying, as for the point about not introducing weapons, the Japanese government will continue the position articulated in 2010 by then Foreign Minister Katsuya Okada during a Diet interpellation. Koizumi Shinjiro's statement here is clearly different from that of Sanae Takaichi. Previously, Japanese media reported that, according to Japanese government sources on November 14th, Sanae Takaichi is considering revising the 3 key national security documents, including the National Security Strategy. Among these, there is a plan to amend one of the 3 non-nuclear principles, specifically the principle of not introducing nuclear weapons. This idea has sparked widespread doubts and concerns. Earlier, during a parliamentary debate, Sanae Takaichi also avoided giving a clear stance when asked whether the Japanese government would amend the core non-nuclear principles next year. Koizumi Shinjirō, who, like Sanae Takaichi, is a right-wing politician, participated in the Liberal Democratic Party presidential election on October 4th this year. Shinjirō Koizumi, who made it to the second round, was ultimately defeated by Sanae Takaichi and lost his chance to rise to power. On April 21st, Sanae Takaichi announced the cabinet lineup, appointing Shinjirō Koizumi as Japan's Minister of Defense. Now, with Koizumi openly opposing the revision of the 3 non-nuclear principles, this will hinder Sanae Takaichi's attempt to amend the principle that prohibits the introduction of nuclear weapons. This move shows that the behind-the-scenes struggle between Shinjirō Koizumi and Sanae Takaichi has already begun. In fact, by understanding the background of how Sanae Takaichi rose to power, you can see the reasoning behind her actions today, as well as grasp Koizumi's motivations. In Japan's male-dominated society, for a woman to become prime minister, she must have her own path to the top. Sanae Takaichi achieved this by taking a hardline, radical anti-China stance, doing things others wouldn't dare to do, and thus highlighting her own tough and assertive image. CCTV's affiliated self-media, Yu Tantian, previously published a commentary mentioning that Sanae Takaichi, known for stirring up trouble, did two particularly bold things on her way up. The first was visiting the Yasukuni Shrine. In 2007, then Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, hoping to improve relations with China, chose not to visit the Yasukuni Shrine on August 15th, the anniversary of Japan's surrender. However, Takaichi still went to pay her respects at the shrine on that day. At that time, all 16 cabinet ministers, including Sanae Takaichi, stated that they would not visit the shrine. However, Japan's far-right and domestic conservatives still strongly believed that politicians should visit the Yasukuni Shrine, and they were extremely dissatisfied with the Abe administration's collective avoidance of the visit. In this situation, Takaichi stepped forward. She took the initiative to score points for Abe, becoming the only cabinet member in the Abe administration to visit the Yasukuni Shrine on Japan's Memorial Day. Sanae Takaichi did the difficult and thankless job that Abe himself could not conveniently do, stepping up to hold the line for the right wing. By doing so, she both relieved pressure on Abe and gained his trust, as well as winning the support of Japan's right wing. The second matter was replacing the Murayama statement with the Abe statement. The things that Abe Shinzo couldn't conveniently say, Sanae Takaichi would say on his behalf. Abe had always wanted to downplay Japan's war crimes in China. In 2013, when Sanae Takaichi was a member of the LDP Policy Research Council, she urged the Japanese government to re-examine the apologies made for wartime actions and to expand the country's regional influence. The main target of this was the Murayama statement. Back when former Prime Minister Tomichi Murayama made the statement in 1995, on the 50th anniversary of the end of the war, he acknowledged Japan's colonial rule and the tremendous harm and suffering that its invasion of many countries brought to the people of Asia. The Japanese right wing was very dissatisfied with Murayama's statement, admitting historical wrongdoing. Later, Sanae Takaichi suggested that then Prime Minister Shinzo Abe issue a new statement to replace Murayama's statement. Later, Abe did indeed issue a statement, but it only reviewed the previous cabinet's understanding of history, indirectly mentioning reflection and apology. However, it no longer apologized for Japan's acts of aggression against other countries during the war. Abe also asserted that Japanese people born after World War II do not need to bear the burden of apologizing. Afterwards, the Abe statement effectively overturned the Murayama statement's acknowledgement of historical aggression and apology, undermining the narrative of apologizing for history. By promoting the Abe statement, he gained enough political capital to bring the Minister of Internal Affairs from his second cabinet into the core of power. From this, it is clear that Sanae Takaichi was a thorough political opportunist. She advocated for radical ideologies to rise to power. Now, as China pushes back against Takaichi's provocative remarks, Shinjirō Koizumi, originally also a populist politician, has become her main rival. He opposes revising the principle of not introducing nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. He wants to widen the gap between himself and Takaichi in Japanese politics, because Takaichi suffers from her anti-China stance. When people want to break free from the deadlock of confrontation with China, he becomes the best choice. Like a mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind, Koizumi is just as opportunistic as Takaichi, but at the moment, Koizumi is betting in the opposite direction from Takaichi. Some people ask, with China-Japan relations deteriorating rapidly, how will this situation end? The logical way of thinking is that the Japanese Prime Minister overstepped with his remarks and made a mistake. He just needs to retract his statement and the issue could be downplayed and resolved. But in reality, things obviously aren't that simple. Sanae Takaichi has her eyes on the global trend and is riding the wave of extreme right-wing, anti-China sentiment, which has a market among the public. How could she so easily take back her words? However, as time goes by and the negative economic consequences of the China-Japan standoff gradually become apparent in Japanese society, the pressure on Takaichi will only continue to grow. The Liberal Democratic Party's rule in Japan is already not very stable, as it's not a single majority party. As the economy faces setbacks, the government will be under immense pressure. The main way out of this situation is for Sanae Takaichi to step down, Japan to appoint a new prime minister, and then there will be a chance for improvement in China-Japan relations. To sum it up, first, don't think that Japanese politicians are truly principled in their anti-China stance. Just look at how Sanae Takaichi rose to power, and you'll see that their anti-China position is a form of political opportunism. Sanae Takaichi believes she made the right bet in the past, so now she's doubling down. Second, Sanae Takaichi is no longer the Sanae Takaichi of the past. She's no longer just a minor cabinet member. Her rise to power means she now represents Japan. Likewise, China is not the China of the past. Things that China could tolerate before, in today's international political environment, are no longer the same. China can no longer tolerate it. Otherwise, after Japan targets China, they'll move on to Europe. How could there be any stability then? That's why China is taking a tough stance and making a move. There's no turning back now. The rise of the third faction's leader is not secure, and Koizumi Shinjirō also sees an opportunity. The political infighting in Japan has only just begun.